Let's dive right into it. When we think of Greek mythology, we usually picture this scattered collection of isolated adventures. A monster slain over here, maybe a lightning bolt thrown over there. But the actual truth? It is a ruthless, highly structured, multi-generational dynasty. What we're really looking at in this explainer is a sweeping, interconnected saga. It traces the transfer of absolute power from the literal dawn of creation all the way down to the messy, super complicated lives of mortal humans. Before the universe had form, there was only chaos. Now, this wasn't chaos like, a messy room or a bad traffic jam. We are talking about the primordial void. It's this vast, yawning emptiness that is literally older than language itself. A totally silent, unshaped blank canvas. And by starting the story right here, the ancient Greeks set the stage for a cosmos that wasn't cleanly designed from the top down. Actually, it was something that slowly and violently wrestled itself out of absolute nothingness.
So, out of that terrifying void, the very first things to emerge definitely weren't men with white beards sitting on clouds. No, they were foundational, elemental truths. We have Gaia, who doesn't just rule the earth, she literally is the earth. Then there's Tartarus, this unfathomable abyss of the underworld. We've got Eros, the fundamental binding force of desire that just pulls matter together. And shortly after that, Nyx, which is night, and Erebus, which is darkness. I really want you to picture these not as human-shaped gods throwing parties, but as the raw physics of a brand new universe aggressively settling into place.
But, as you can guess, these primal forces couldn't just exist in peace for very long. Gaia took a consort, Uranus, who represented the starry sky. And together they produced a pretty terrifying brood, the Titans, the Cyclops, and the hundred-handed Hecaton chairs. Well, Uranus was so utterly horrified by their grotesque power that he actually committed the universe's first real crime. He locked his monstrous children right back inside Gaia's womb. So in agonizing pain, Gaia fashions this massive flint sickle and convinces her youngest Titan's son, Cronus, to ambush his dad. In this brutal, completely unthinkable coup, Cronus castrates Uranus. The starry sky is permanently severed from the earth, and from the blood that spills into the churning sea, Aphrodite is born. Power had officially changed hands, and man, it was paid for in blood.
And this sparks a massive visual and thematic contrast right at the heart of the mythology. On one side, we have the Titans and those early primordial offspring. They're grotesque, terrifying, raw forces of nature that usually end up locked away in the dark abyss. But on the other side, we have the ultimate destiny of the cosmos, the gleaming, polished, highly idealized new gods who are going to eventually rule from the sunlit peaks. It's essentially the ultimate story of wild, untamed nature being violently pruned back, just so that structured, beautiful civilization can finally take root. All of this early bloodshed actually establishes the main engine that drives Greek myth. It's what we call the cycle of paranoia. Basically, a ruler comes to power, they get a dark prophecy, or harbor this deep-seated fear that their own offspring will overthrow them, so they commit unspeakable atrocities to suppress those kids. But in doing so, they create the exact hatred and resentment that absolutely guarantees their violent overthrow. Uranus suppressed his kids and was overthrown by Cronus. And, well, as we're about to see, Cronus didn't learn a single thing from his father's mistakes. Which brings us to child number 6. So Cronus claims the cosmic throne, but he's immediately haunted by that exact same prophecy, that his own child is going to violently depose him. His parenting solution? Yeah, he swallowed his first 5 children whole. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, just right down the hatch. But when the 6th child was born, his wife Rhea just couldn't bear the heartbreak again. She wraps a literal rock in swaddling clothes and hands it to Cronus, who somehow just swallows it blindly without even noticing the crunch. That surviving 6th child was Zeus, and he was spirited away to be raised in total secret on Mount Ida. Now, Zeus didn't just charge blindly into battle the second he grew up, he used strategy. Partnering with the clever Titaness Metis, they executed a brilliant deception. They tricked the paranoid Cronus into drinking a poisoned wine potion. And the result was visceral and immediate. Cronus violently vomited up Zeus's siblings. And because they were immortal, they hadn't been digested at all, they had been growing this entire time inside his stomach. So in a single chaotic moment, the new Olympian generation was physically birthed back into the world, fully grown, absolutely furious, and completely ready for war. And war is exactly what they got. The Titanomachy was this brutal, world-shaking 10-year conflict. You had the entrenched old guard, the Titans, clashing against the furious young gods. To break the endless stalemate, Zeus does the unthinkable. He actually shatters the gates of Tartarus to free his monstrous, hundred-handed uncles and the Cyclops.
In immense gratitude, the Cyclops forge the ultimate weapons of the ancient world. They give Zeus his iconic, world-shattering thunderbolts, Poseidon his earthquaking trident, and Hades a terrifying helm of darkness. With this overwhelming supernatural artillery, the young Olympians just obliterated the old guard, crushing the Titans and chaining them down in the very abyss they had just emptied.
So you might be wondering, how did these three victorious brothers avoid instantly turning on each other and starting another cosmic war? Well, they drew sacred lots to divide existence fairly. Zeus won the sky and absolute kingship over the cosmos. Poseidon took command of the relentless, untamed seas. And Hades accepted the shadowy, silent underworld. The earth itself, that was left as common ground for all of them. By drawing these boundaries, they finally broke the cycle of paranoia. They established an eternal, peaceful marble court on Mount Olympus, and shifted their focus away from destroying each other to steering the fragile affairs of the mortal world below.
With the cosmos finally stable, we're going to shift our focus over to humanity, where the flawed reflection of the gods really spills over to us. We enter this part of the explainer through the Titan Prometheus. According to the myth, he carefully crafted mankind from wet clay, but seeing his creations cold, vulnerable, and completely exposed to the elements, he took pity on us. He stole the divine fire of the gods and gifted it to humanity, single-handedly sparking human civilization. And for this ultimate act of rebellion, Zeus sentenced Prometheus to eternal torture. It's a profound concept, really, because it shows that human survival was quite literally born out of divine sacrifice and rebellion.
But look, the gift of fire didn't just guarantee a perfect world. The ancient Greeks definitely didn't believe humanity evolved upwards, they believed we degraded over time. We started out in a pristine gold age, basically a paradise of absolute peace and plenty. But over time, humanity corrupted. We fell into the Silver Age and then the violently brutal Bronze Age. Now, there was a brief upward spike in the Heroic Age, which we'll talk about in a second, before finally plummeting straight into the Iron Age. That was the harsh, morally compromised, endlessly toiling epoch that the ancient Greeks believed they currently lived in.
Let's look a little closer at that one brief upward spike, the Heroic Age. This gave rise to an incredible era of demigods, mortals who wrestled with the exact same grief, greed, and heroism that shape human nature today. You had Perseus using Medusa's severed snake-haired head to save a kingdom, Heracles enduring his legendary 12 impossible labors just to redeem his broken soul from madness, Theseus navigating the pitch-black labyrinth with nothing but a thread to slay the Minotaur. Then there's Jason sailing the treacherous seas for the Golden Fleece, and Oedipus tragically fulfilling his own cursed prophecy while outsmarting the Sphinx. Guys, these weren't just Saturday morning action heroes. They were complex avatars for the depth of human struggle.
Eventually, though, all that heroic, semi-divine energy boils over into devastating tragedy. A single golden apple of discord, tossed spitefully at a wedding feast, eventually leads to the Trojan prince, Paris, stealing Helen away from Sparta. And in response, 1,000 Greek ships sailed east toward the heavily fortified, supposedly impenetrable walls of Troy. This wasn't a quick, glorious skirmish. It was a blood-soaked, grueling 10-year siege that dragged in mortals and gods alike. The whole thing was fueled endlessly by the stubborn greed of kings like Agamemnon and the devastating, world-ending grief of warriors like Achilles.
This war completely changed the values of the ancient world. You see, it didn't end in the old way, with open battlefield glory and honor on the line like Achilles dueling Hector in the broad daylight. No, it ended in cunning trickery. It was Odysseus's dark, devastating deception of the wooden horse that finally breached the walls from the inside. The ancient world didn't wrap up in a glorious, honorable clash of champions. It ended in a sneaky, brutal, nighttime slaughter while the enemy slept.
The absolutely crucial takeaway here is the grim aftermath of the heroic age. There were no true victors. I mean, the Greeks won the war, sure, but look at the cost. The great king Agamemnon returns home victorious, only to be brutally murdered by his own wife in his bathtub. The brilliant tactician Odysseus, he was cursed by the gods and doomed to wander the terrifying seas for 10 harrowing years just trying to get back to his family. It really proves the deep, inescapable tragedy of the mortal condition. In this world, even when you win, you kind of lose.
Over time, the physical marble temples eventually crumbled. The sacred oracles fell entirely silent, but the gods survived. During the first millennium, these incredibly resilient myths were quietly copied in secret by medieval monks working by candlelight. By the 14th century, they were beautifully revitalized during the Renaissance, viewed not as literal religion anymore, but as profound psychological archetypes. And today, right now in the 21st century, they are endlessly reimagined in our pop culture, our blockbuster movies, and our best-selling books.
Which leaves us with a pretty provocative question. Are we still worshiping the exact same archetypes today? Think about it. When we watch movies about deeply flawed heroes, ruthless power struggles, paranoid leaders, and profound human mistakes, aren't we just recounting the exact same foundational truths that emerged from chaos all those millennia ago? It turns out, the deeply human nature of the Greek pantheon ensures their stories remain totally immortal. The gods didn't die, they literally just changed their names. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope it leaves you seeing these ancient stories in a whole new light.